Welcome back to the South African Morning. Now, recent allegations of a 2-year-old being assaulted at a Phoenix creche has caused outrage. But this, unfortunately, is not the first report of abuse or bullying at schools. Now, the Guardian Investigations has launched an app to report abuse, harassment and bullying. It's also got a panic button for emergencies. And to talk more about this, I'm joined by the Guardian Group's Managing Director, Marc Hardwick. Marc, many thanks for your questions this morning. I mean, you've spoken about the fact that we've got the best reactive laws, but the worst proactive laws when it comes to dealing with these issues. And why would you say that is?
I think that there is a reality that South Africans tend to be reactive. We tend to see the power in the reactive. I think there is an absolute need for us to identify the fact that we need to be more proactive. We need parents to be more proactive in terms of the questions and the conversations they're having with their schools or the sports clubs that they put their children in. I think that we really do need to address proactive safeguarding in South Africa holistically. I think that we sit with, like you mentioned, I think we do sit with some of the best reactive legislation in the world, but proactively we tend to fall short quite drastically. We tend to fall short in comparison to the rest of the world. And I think that unless we're going to start taking steps to not put the child in danger in the first place, we focus on catching the guy the whole time that may have hurt the child, which is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we mustn't be reactive. I just kind of feel that until we address proactive, we're going to have a challenge.
Right. I mean, with that, we've spoken about the role that the parents can play, but really just paint a picture of how widespread is the abuse in schools and sporting institutions across the country.
So I think it is. I think it's far bigger than anybody acknowledges. I think we sit in a situation where, you know, we've seen statistics, horrific statistics, where they talk about 1 in 3 children will be sexually assaulted. And I think if we give that a little bit of context and we almost go that sexual assault only makes up a quarter of the different types of abuse that are defined. You know, we look at emotional abuse, we look at neglect, we look at physical abuse, much like the case you're talking about now. And so, you know, it doesn't take rocket science to identify the fact that those kinds of things are happening, and they're so much bigger than we're aware of. I feel that unless we start taking those steps to address that proactivity, we're going to keep falling short. That really is the bottom line.
Right. And I mean, when children do go through this kind of trauma that happens at a place where they're also supposed to be safe apart from home, I mean, the kind of impact that would have on a child's development, talk us through that.
So I think it's very important to realize that in as much as it's very easy to identify the physical challenge that happens on the child's life, I think it's also important to bear in mind that there are so many other psychological challenges that will come into the child's life. You know, things like we're aware, or we've seen within studies around the world, that there is a possibility of low self-esteem. The child will go into spaces of self-blame, distrust of adults, or difficulty forming relationships with others. Mental health disorders such as anxiety, depression, PTSD, sometimes suicidal thoughts, learning disorders, poor language and cognitive development, eating disorders. All of these things are, as you know, we've seen as a result of almost the secondary that comes as a result of child abuse. And you know, when we set ourselves up, or we say that we are going to be the persons responsible for safeguarding children, like teachers, we need to be aware that when we fail, the magnitude at which we fail is really significant.
Right. Now let's speak about the solutions. You've developed an app. Talk us through how exactly that works and how that might actually potentially change the tide.
So we've sat for, excuse me, we've sat for a very long time, and even when we consider a study that was done in Australia, and let's just look at bullying, which is probably the most widespread, but certainly not the most aggressive of child abuse. And we look at that and we go, well, teachers are aware, statistically, of 25 to 27% of the bullying that's happening. The thing is that teachers think they're aware of up to 70% of the bullying that's happening. We know that it is happening. We need to be questioning why is it not being reported? And very often, sometimes our answers are actually in old academics. Things like old sayings like, snitches get stitches. And these kind, yeah, 100%. And so what we did is we wanted to create a place where if you need to report, you can do so anonymously, whether you're reporting about a challenge that you're facing, whether you're reporting about a challenge that maybe a fellow student or a friend is facing. We wanted to create a place where the ability to report anonymously is something that is tangible. And essentially the way the app works is the learner would be able to send through a report. They could attach evidence to the report, which could be in the form of a picture, it could be in the form of a video, a text, any kind of standard attachment that we would put on social media. And, excuse me, that would go through to the powers that be at the school. And you would never be able to know who the person is that sends the report, even though the school is able to open up dialogue with the person who sent through the report. So we've got the educator or the HOD or the headmaster actually communicating with the learner, but never knowing who they are speaking to. And then to boot, the system brings in a quite a very clever panic button system, which is a bit different from most panic buttons, but it is a panic button system nonetheless. And what is nice about it is at the end, once all the consulting or counseling has been done, once the panic has come to an end, all of that information is available for either forensic investigation or for any disciplinary inquiry that may need to run in the school.
Marc, many thanks for your insights there. Marc Hardwick, talking us through some of the issues that children are facing when it comes to abuse and bullying, and really some or other solutions that can be developed to change the situation for schools or children going to schools.